Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 7 of Laredoans Behind the Business. My name is Jeffrey Ramos. I am your host. Today I have Chris Segovia, and he has a multitude of small businesses. Maybe I would say multitude, right?
Yeah.
You got your cacti, you got your pottery, and a couple of other things. And I wanted to bring him on because he's a good friend of mine, and I think his small businesses are so unique and not really found in Laredo too often. But I think it's a good small business to showcase because it is the epitome of a small business. It's just him and his little things. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Hello. My name is Christopher Segovia. I am 26 years old. I am a farmer, a beekeeper, and a collector of cacti. And I moved back from Utah about 2 years ago, where I started Venado, Azul, the cacti business. And it's just been a multitude of things since then. So
That's cool, man. That's cool. Excuse me. I remember you spoke a little bit about your time in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that and how that was like.
So right before I moved there, I was working for the Canseco garden. So I was like kind of managing the space, tending to the pollinator garden, kind of running the weekend shindigs. And I was also going to school, and I was also tending to the small business at the time, which was the rescue and rehabilitation of feral beehives here in Laredo.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, I got really burnt out with school, with life and everything. So I found a job opening in Utah working for the Youth Garden Project, which is a permaculture farm in Moab, Utah. And I just packed up my bags and left.
You just said laters.
Laters, dude. And I lived out there for about a year teaching at-risk youth how to cultivate their food in the desert using biodynamic methods, and it was a life-changing time in one of the most beautiful places on the planet.
Hell yeah. At-risk youth, what does that mean?
So the schooling system in that particular place is really weird. They're 3 to 5 months on, and then they're off, and then they go back. They have 3 semesters, and it's really odd.
Mm-hmm.
But with that being said, there's not a lot for kids to do, and I think there was at that time the uprising of some sort of meth epidemic, or amongst other.
Oh, you said at risk, right?
At risk. Yeah.
At risk. So they're basically getting into trouble.
Yeah, a lot of the time, or they just don't go to school at all.
Wow.
So this program, which was a stone's throw away from one of the schools, basically took in some of the kids, and they spent a couple of hours with us every single day. We had programs for them. It was just a good opportunity to teach them where their food comes from, the cohesiveness that goes into human plant dynamics, and it was a very therapeutic method of just getting your hands in the dirt and just kind of relinquishing all the troubles of school life, home, and just being outside.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I remember when we went on that run, we talked a little bit about that, and I don't think I ever asked you, but how, or maybe you did, maybe I did. How difficult was it for you to just up and leave and say, I'm moving to some other place and I have no idea where this is going to take me?
It was,
that's pretty daunting.
Yeah. I never in my life did I ever think I would do that.
Yeah.
At the time I had a girlfriend that I was very much in love with.
Yeah.
My family.
So you said bye to her too?
I said bye to her too.
Oh man, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's tough, man.
And I think I was just so fed up with the benign and the regular and the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I was doing what I was loving. I was gardening, and I had my bees, and I had birds to train and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I hadn't been away from Laredo. I hadn't had my adventure yet. I haven't seen.
Had you ever been outside Laredo before?
Yeah. I went to Europe for almost an entire month.
Really?
And, I had a long time ago, I had a girlfriend in Boston, so I would go to Boston.
Nice.
And so I had been around and I had traveled, but I hadn't lived my life outside of Laredo yet.
Yeah.
And so I just picked up and left. And when I was there, I was making $400 a month in a tourist town.
Wow.
Which was like next to nothing.
Right.
Luckily,
Yeah.
like I worked on the farm and they gave us food
Yeah.
that we grew, but it really, really taught me to like live within my means, to live off the land,
Yeah.
to be accepting and open-minded to the nomadicies of like the people who came and went within that town.
Yeah.
You know, there are very eclectic and nomadic individuals that resided there
Mm-hmm.
for any period of time.
That's crazy.
And those are some of the most beautiful relationships I've ever formed.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure of that. How what are some of the challenges that like what do you think is one of the biggest challenges when you moved over there? When you moved out of Laredo and you finally realized, okay, like
One of the biggest,
I'm on my own.
one of the biggest things that slapped me in the face was like being the only brown person.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Which wasn't as like daunting as it may seem, but like you kind of
It's a big thing.
Yeah, you find yourself in like in a room or like in a situation, you kind of like look around, you're like, wow, like
Everybody's looking like you have a hole in your head.
not so much that, but like you either have an accent or you say something, and or you talk about like your traditions or your day-to-day back home. Like everyone
Yeah.
everywhere else thinks that Texans have horses.
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, I don't have horses.
Yeah.
Like, I don't eat tacos every day.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like a lot of that, and sometimes people were like very open to it and interested, and then you have your individuals who are not
Yeah.
that, and they're kind of like don't come
Stay
into
away
my
from me.
space, don't come into like my home.
Yeah.
It was experiencing that was a little daunting, because I would travel around Utah, like there was national parks to go to here and there, and there were times where for whatever reason like a problem arose and we had to drive all the way back home, but we couldn't stay in these small towns because there was like obvious
Like racism.
Like, there was times where like people would up the price on me at a store just because
Just because of the way you look.
or like for instance, my grandparents are like a white passing, like they're fair skinned, green eyes,
Yeah.
and we would be on a trail, and there was one moment where I was with my mother, who's also Hispanic,
Mm-hmm.
and she would say hello to these people, and they would totally ignore her.
Wow.
My grandparents were like no more than 10 feet back. They would say hello, and they would get instant gratification.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just like little moments like that here and there that were just kind of like, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I would have to agree with you on that one, because I don't want to say that my situation's the same, obviously, but when I moved to North Carolina, I lived over there for 3.5 years. And I think I talked to you a little bit about that before, but aside from one of the biggest things that we struggled with, aside from missing our family and the food,
Mm-hmm.
was the way that people looked at you and treated you.
Yeah.
And it was tough, because I think Laredo is very sheltered when it comes to racism, like in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
Because our community is almost 95% Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't ever see that side, So when we moved over there, I was, and we had those encounters, like for my wife, for instance, when she was working at the hospital, which was an hour away. I remember she told me one time that she started talking in Spanish to one of the patients, and then the lady that was behind her, she was white, obviously, but she started talking louder and slower.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I'm not dumb, I'm not deaf, like I can understand you.
Yeah.
Just because I speak Spanish doesn't mean you need to talk louder or slower.
That's kind of atrocious.
Yeah, it's bad, man. It was really bad. But yeah, that was one of the biggest things that we struggled with too. And there were other funny instances too, where I wouldn't say that it was racism, but the Hispanic culture was very different over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there was all kinds of Hispanics. There was Hispanics from Mexico, there was Hispanics from Puerto Rico, there was Dominicans, whatever. And I remember she went to one of the Mexican restaurants, and the manager started coming out, and the manager started, hey, like, is everything okay? How's the food?
Yeah, it's like, what am I on?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she was like, okay, yeah, cool. Like, this is awesome. And then he started coming out more frequently, like, oh, the service is doing good. Like, like, is everything okay?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what? Like, what's going on here? Like, she's like, I think they thought that I was one of those what do they call them? Like
Paisanos?
no, not a paisano. It was like when you taste the food and you like you.
Oh, like a food critic.
Yeah, like a food critic. So like I guess like they must have thought that she was some kind of food critic, and like she walked away with like the best service ever.
Yeah.
But it was just like that's kind of weird, And another time too, we're actually on our way. We stopped in Alabama, and we even got it from our own people, like from Hispanics. Mm-hmm. I know this is like super off topic, but like we stopped in Alabama. We stopped at a Mexican restaurant, and as soon as you walk into the restaurant, it was like you saw all the Hispanics on the left side, and then like you saw like all the white people on the right side. Yeah. I guess so that the servers could differentiate, like, oh, like I can talk Spanish with them. I don't like maybe the other servers who don't talk Spanish and they talk English.
That's helpful, I guess.
Yeah, in a way, but they immediately put us on the other side.
Yeah.
Which I was like, bro, like, am I that white or what? Like, and it's just like, damn. And I started talking to them in Spanish, and they're like, oh. They're like, they looked at us differently, and they're like, oh. Yeah, well, I mean, we're already here, right? But like, yeah, man, I agree with you on that one. I think that one was one of the biggest, for you too, that's one of the biggest challenges when moving somewhere outside that you're not comfortable with. But anyways, super off topic, changing the subject. Chris is a coffee roaster at Dosis. Shout out to Dosis and Café Radical. Any new coffees that you guys have been roasting or anything?
We're kind of tapping out of our current offerings, which is Mexico and Ethiopian. Mm-hmm. We have some samples to roast up, and as soon as my boss and friend Billy Hernster gets a day off to help me sample them, nice. We'll start bringing in some new ones.
You're doing that today?
Not today, but probably within the weekend, if latest Monday.
Nice. Is that Ethiopian one? Is that the one that we had at the coffee shop the last time I was there?
Like the really berry forward one?
Yeah, it was like a really fruity, almost in a way.
A natural. So I believe when they're going through their drying process, the bean has a part of the fruit still on it. So it dries with the fruit on it. So it takes in all
those notes and stuff. Oh, that's really cool, man. That is really badass. Is there anything that you'd like to add or to say about the coffee roasting aspect that you do? Like, I think that's a really cool job. You might find it a little mundane because you've already done it for so long, but
on the contrary, like I will say that I am very grateful.
Yeah.
That I have my hand in these different trades, and they're able to sustain my way of life.
There you go.
Not very many people can say like, oh, I garden, I roast coffee, I sell cactus.
Yeah.
And it pays for my house, and it pays for my lifestyle and my hobbies.
Yeah.
I'm very incredibly grateful to not only learn a trade, but to work amongst a very dynamic group of people who are bringing on a renaissance to our city.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Dosis, the cactus wouldn't have had the startup it did.
Yeah.
I tell this story all the time, but I was literally sitting in the bathtub one day drinking some tequila, and
at your house or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I moved back, I had zero money. I had no girlfriend. I was depressed. I started El Venado Azul just to keep myself busy, honestly. Yeah. And I sent Billy a message saying like, hey, I got some cactus if you want to like furbish your brick and mortar. And not only did that launch my my business into its next phase, but it's not only did it start a friendship, but it started like a potential career path as well.
Yeah.
So I owe a lot to that little little spark.
Yeah. Is that how you met Billy, or
that was how I met Billy?
Really? Uh-huh. So you slid into his DMs.
I did.
Yeah.
I was playing the part too. I was in the bathtub.
There you go.
That's how I did it.
Nice, dude. Dude, sometimes you gotta take that leap. Sometimes you never know where it's gonna take you. I think we can all, anybody watching or listening, even myself included, I think we've all been there, where we don't we don't know where that next step is gonna take us, and it's a really it's a real shot in the dark, and we just say, you know, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like,
What
do we have to lose? You know,
those little moments of fuck it have gotten me a lot further than I thought.
yeah, yeah.
So
It's sometimes it's a good way to propel yourself into, you know, the future, but sometimes I guess for some people, I guess fuck it is the wrong context, I guess, if you will.
You know, I don't want to say I grew up from like a rags to riches kind of thing, but it was definitely like I grew up from like having absolutely nothing to having as much as can be given to me, to when I took my own step in life, ergo like moving to Utah where I had nothing again.
Yeah.
You know, so it took that much to put into perspective. Like I have too much and I don't have enough. Like there's different moments in your life where those certain types of aspects come to light, and I think I'm right where I need to be.
Yeah.
You know, I have everything I need.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I get it. I think sometimes it's better to live with less than what we're given.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to appreciate the stuff the things that you have in life, and whether that's, you know, like you have dogs, you know, cactus or cacti. Just appreciate the little things, and absolutely. I think it goes a long way. But yeah, let's hear a little bit about the cacti.
Yeah. So when I started El Venado Azul again, it started out of sadness.
Yeah.
But
how'd you come up with the name?
If you can tell from my tattoos there, I'm covered in cactus.
Yeah.
But the one that like really struck my curiosity was the peyote cactus.
Yeah.
The Latin name is Lophophora williamsii. And so
that's such a long name.
I know. But I know in some cultures, peyote takes on different names. So I know to the Huichol people of central Mexico, they call it El Venado Azul.
Really?
Yeah. And that's where I got the name from. And first and foremost, like I wanted to like make a living out of it, and like don't get me wrong, I get paid for my bills sometimes.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to emphasize the delicacies that kind of come into like collecting cactus, because a lot of these are not only seed grown, but they're also considered endangered. Really? So it's all about conservation first and foremost. So on the one closest to you is called Copiapoa cinerea, and like I mentioned earlier, it's native to the Atacama deserts of Chile. How
did you obtain that?
So I will always try to make it a point to kind of throw a bone to like independent growers. Okay. So these people, you know, they put in the time and the effort to grow the seeds. They figure out how to grow the seeds. Yeah, so that one's grown from seed. That one's probably about 15.
So do you have it shipped to your house, or?
I have it shipped to my house.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. Or like, I mean, do you go over there and like dig it out of the ground? Like that'd be cool.
And that's the thing, is that the Copiapoa, like they have these massive ancient specimens like around Chile and the Atacama, but there's no law to preserve them. Really? So they're constantly being poached. Like and again, if things are poached and removed from the wild, then you remove something essential from the ecosystem. Right. And therefore, not only will it be missing, but it will no longer, you know, replace itself. Right. Yeah. So there's like this entire black market centered around cacti and these exotic plants. So like, say if that one were removed from the wild, it would most definitely find itself on the black market in Japan and be sold for over $500 to $1,000. Jeez.
Wow, that is insane. So it's not like correct me if I'm wrong on the name, but it's not like the saguaro cactus and the ones in Arizona. Those are protected, right?
Those are protected.
Yeah.
Like so it's like in the Central Americas, we do have certain laws in place to preserve certain plants like the saguaro. Yeah. But like, for example, where we live here in the Tamaulipan thorn scrub, I would say this much, like I definitely took it for granted as to like how unique our ecosystem and our home is, because we're considered a wetland, but yet we have like arid environments. Right. Yeah. In fact, a large part of that black market kind of hovers around this area, because we have peyote, and we have Echinocactus texensis, which, as we know, is the horse crippler.
Mm-hmm.
And we have such an, I wouldn't say it's an abundance.
Why is it called a horse crippler?
I don't know. It looks like something that would cripple a horse.
Yeah.
Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
I also make the pot that it's in.
Did you bring a peyote cactus too?
I didn't bring a peyote cactus.
Oh, I was gonna say I've never seen one in person.
I considered it.
Oh yeah, this would definitely look like.
And that's a baby. That one's again grown from seed.
That's cool. And the soil, where do you get you just?
I formulate it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool.
And that's like a big problem too amongst my customers is that they're like
where do you get the soil? How do you?
How do I take care of it?
Yeah.
I water it too much. And that's the thing. I don't want to say the cool thing about these cactus is that they kind of thrive on neglect.
Yeah.
As they do in the wild.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I just tell them just forget about it. Water it 2 weeks when they're in season.
Yeah.
Once every 2 weeks when they're in season, and you'll do just fine.
Yeah.
And even then, people just can't help it. They water them.
Yeah, because yeah.
And so a way around that, or to kind of counteract the excess of water, is formulating your own soil. So there's pumice and decomposed granite and maybe a very small percentage of organic material and perlite. So you got the aeration, you got the minerals, you basically
for the water to evaporate.
It holds what it needs, and then it leaks out through.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then the one in the middle?
That one's called Tephrocarpus geometricus, and I believe it's also from central Mexico. If not there, it most likely will be from Chile. And the cool thing about that is that, as you can see, is that it puts on spheres, it grows in spheres.
Like bulbs almost.
And one cool thing about cactus is that it's such a niche market.
Yeah.
But the specimens gather equity as they get older. So for instance, on the internet, if you were to Google Tephrocarpus geometricus, you'll find one sphere and it'll go for $20. For each sphere, you can rack on $20.
And how big does that one get?
It can get massive, but
really?
It only puts on one sphere per year.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Now there's ways around that where you can actually graft it to another fast-growing cactus. I know balloon.
Yeah.
But I don't have the guts to do that.
Yeah.
Especially since it's my only one.
Yeah, I would leave that one. Did you make the little container that it's in?
Pot was actually made by my friend Gabo Martinez.
Oh, nice.
Who is currently residing in San Marcos and is a very talented ceramicist.
Nice. That's awesome. And then the one closest to you?
The one closest to me is called Turbinicarpus strobiformis, and it is also native to Mexico. And like the peyote, it has a napiform root. So, say the tephrocarpus is going to put on what our ideal of roots are. It's going to be really fibrous. You're going to go to that. But the napiform root is more of a tubercle. So it puts out a tuber, much like a turnip.
Okay.
So it's the turnip and then the cactus on top.
Oh wow.
And that is what a napiform root is.
Kind of like a weed, right? Like the weeds, they just one root. Yeah.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Like one root. Wow, that's cool. What about that big one over there?
This one is called Apuntia galapagea. It is a very slow-growing cactus. Wow. But it's from the Galapagos. And before this looks...
That one looks like it hurts.
It does. And before this gets to where I want it, I'll probably be dead, honestly.
Really?
This one, it's a prickly pear.
Yeah.
An Apuntia. All prickly pears belong to the family Apuntia. This grows as a tree. It goes straight up and then it starts putting out branches that are prickly pear petals.
Really?
Yeah. And
wow.
So,
how long does that take? Obviously.
It'll probably take 80 to 100 years.
Wow.
But just having it is enough for me.
Yeah, dude, that's insane. You pass that on to, your kids or somebody.
Maybe they'll have it as a treat.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like all the other cacti, that one's kind of you rarely water it.
Rarely, yeah. It's I neglect all my plants.
And then the other one in the corner there?
That one?
Yeah.
So I try to have a little bit of everything on hand. I get mothers and...
That one doesn't even look like a cactus.
Yeah.
Or a cacti.
You can touch it.
Really?
Yeah, it won't hurt you. So one of the biggest things I get is from mothers and fathers is is it going to hurt my cat? Or is it going to hurt my child?
Yeah.
And more often than not, that's a big deterrent from purchasing the plant of your dreams. So I try to have one on hand that
is really cool.
Either of those things.
And what's special about this one?
It flowers, but like the cool thing about this cactus, they call it the feather cactus. So instead of putting out spines
Mm-hmm.
or picosos, like it just puts out these modified, I guess, spines that kind of give it the
Like a soft
appearance
texture.
of like feathers or pillows.
Yeah, it looks like a pillow more than anything.
So yeah, and this one's really healthy, and I think it'll flower pretty soon. I also made the pot.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Did you make the other pots too, or no?
These three I made. Everything else was either made by Gabo or I just kind of stole it from my grandmother.
Nice. That is awesome, man.
Thank you.
That is really cool. It's such a unique little. I would like to call it art because they look like pieces of art, you know. And
Yeah,
you kind of tend to them like very rarely, you know.
And you know, living in Utah, you know, there was probably like one nursery up there, and they sold trees. They were selling fruit trees in the desert, and I was kind of like looking around. I'm like, there's no cactus here. Like there is a market here for like a cactus shop.
Yeah.
And so when I came back, I started El Venado Azul with the intention of making enough to go back and opening up a shop there.
Nice.
But as time went on and as the pandemic raged on, you know,
Yeah.
it became sort of not impossible, but just like unrealistic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there was I found community here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a renaissance happening, and for the most part, people were very welcoming of the idea and what I was trying to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And so
How long have you had El Venado Azul now?
since 2021, I believe.
Nice.
Since January of 2021.
Nice, good 2 years going.
I
Nice.
can't complain.
Yeah. And you usually find Chris at those what are they called, the markets that you guys have every month?
I think it's the first Saturday of every month.
Yeah. The next one is coming up in what are we now? March, April?
April.
Yeah. So you're gonna be at that one?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have my first ceramic show April 1st and 2nd.
Nice.
I'm not too sure what days those land on. So I might be there, but if not, I'll definitely be at Dosie's.
Hell yeah.
With some cacti.
You didn't, other than the ceramic or the pottery that are in those, you didn't bring like any other, right?
No, I just got these. I think the last plants to look at are because people are just like, oh, you just sell cactus, and yes, I do sell cactus, but there are also like other types of plants that kind of like fall within that range. So like during the evolutionary time where like cacti and plants were like splitting apart, so cacti are native to the Americas, euphorbias are native to the Africas, and then there's other types of things that are here and there. And what we have here is called Euphorbia obesa, which is native to southern Africa.
Oh wow.
And they grow in similar climates and conditions. But the cool things about euphorbia is that they're like really bizarre. Like they put out very awkward shapes. They grow in very awkward conditions. And when they flower, they put out really peculiar flowers that attract a very specific pollinators, such as like flies. So their flowers usually smell like carrion, rotting meat, and stuff like that.
Ooh.
And that's how those get pollinated.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That is really interesting. Yeah, I'll sorry, I know you're like trying to pass it to me right now, but I was
No, it's all good. Don't
yeah.
worry.
Can I see it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's badass. That one is also very slow growing, but when they're mature, when they're large, they, again, equity,
How big do they get?
they can get like massive.
Really?
Like imagine a giant version of that just like wedged into two rocks
Jeez.
in the African deserts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
The rocks alone are interesting too.
It's a good way to kind of like display it,
Yeah.
but it's also part of you know the medium in which
Yeah,
they
like
grow.
what they grow and stuff. Yeah. Because they don't just grow in dirt.
That's true.
Yeah. That's cool.
Thank you.
What is the is there a rare cacti that you've seen here around the Laredo area, or
I
like typical, like because you have your typical prickly pear that you see
there
everywhere? I mean,
one cacti that I've seen here in Laredo that I don't want to say is extinct, but definitely on the verge of becoming locally extinct through development is it's like a rat tail cactus, and it's very inconspicuous. Like you'll have to look really hard for it, and usually the only way you find it is when it's flowering. But it's a very slim and slender cactus, and it grows within the brush,
really?
and then it flowers.
Wow.
And if you get really close up to it, you'll see that the cactus is probably like no thinner than a pencil, and it
Really?
starts from the very bottom. Yeah.
Wow. That is interesting. I've never. Oh, what's the name of that one?
I don't know the Latin name of it, but I just know it as like a rat tail.
Rat tail.
But in retrospect, like again, the black market that participates in the poaching of cactus is very much here.
Really?
Yeah, and like they're definitely going after peyote. They're definitely going after the horse cripplers. We have mammillarias. Like we have such a large and dynamic body of rare plants here that that not only are they being poached, but they're also being destroyed through development. There's not really any cohesive or thoughtful way that we have developed within our city that will preserve and conserve these types of plants.
Do you think that you have, how do I say it? Like, do you think that you would have a voice for that, like coming up to like maybe city council members or something like that, or? Because that's challenging, man. Like I get that's a really challenging. Like everybody wants to save the earth. Everybody wants to be a part of that movement. But
in no way do I want to speak ill of our city council.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, as you know, it's a small town and word gets around fast.
Yeah.
But I have had my fair share of just unfavorable responses from them. Like a long time ago, one of the council members proposed a bill that would basically require a licensed person or someone within the trade to come and pick up a beehive from your home if it's considered a nuisance, rather than calling a fire department, wasting taxpayer dollars to go and eradicate it. So that was the bill. That was the bill they were trying to pass. And so instead of, again, calling someone to come eradicate them, they would call someone to ethically remove them, because it's not just...
But that's a good thing, though, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say,
there's a whole process to properly remove a beehive. Like, just because you kill them doesn't mean they're gonna go away, because they leave behind wax, pheromones. They leave behind materials that attract other bees. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And one council member within the conversation, I won't say who, said, "Why do we need you? My method of dealing with this."
He told you specifically that, or
yes,
like
while on live television.
Oh, really?
Says, "Why do we need you? My method of dealing with this problem is just pour gasoline on them and light them on fire."
Yeah, okay, dude. Yeah, let's not do that.
Like, baffled, because like we do live in like in a very unique place. Like the mesquite forest that we live in is such a dynamic and cohesive ecosystem that whether we admire it or acknowledge it or not, like it's there and we need it. And bees along with that
thrive on that.
Are a necessity. And so it was just kind of a shocker, but it also brought me down to earth to be like, not everyone thinks like me. Not everyone sees the land and what inhabits it as like another living, breathing thing. Like for a lot, it's just business. And it's development.
That's tough, man. That's a real punch in the gut, really, so to speak, because it's tough when somebody doesn't align with your views. But I mean, I get it. Not everybody has to. Not everybody thinks the same way, and I guess we all wish that we could think like we do. But I guess the next best thing is to promote and like influence in a way, so to speak. And I think that's the only way that we're gonna, when we want people not necessarily to align with our views, but they won't, like, I get more like maybe like understand our way of thinking. That's the next best thing to do.
But to answer your question, I don't think I'll have the outreach I would want ever. But there are people out there who do, and they're definitely getting the word out. Like there's this, you might want to check him out. His name's Joey Santor. He has a podcast called Crime Pays, but Botany Doesn't. And he comes around here and he does his podcast and he walks our desert. And he like finds the plants and he talks about them and he talks about how they're being threatened. But on another note, I'll never have the outreach, but I do believe within the changing climates that there will be a point where, furbishing your lawn, acquiring certain plants are just not going to work. Like people love tropical plants. But
like the palm trees and stuff.
They require a lot of water. And even now, as you may be aware, there's a water scarcity here.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to happen when we don't have water to sustain that?
Right.
We
Yeah.
need a xeriscape. You know, Arizona did that. They're like, we're not going to waste time with these tropical plants. We're gonna embellish, and we're gonna, you know, kind of take to heart where we live and what grows around here. And they have beautiful lawns and xeriscapes that,
Yeah.
you know, promote what grows there.
Yeah.
And so there's a few houses, there's a few homes that are definitely underway, and they do that. But there's gonna come a point in time, I fear, that that's gonna be an absolute necessity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember when I was living, I was living at Jason Kirkpatrick's house. Shout out to Jason Kirkpatrick from Rooftop Lounge and Rock and Roll Pizzeria. I was living in his, I guess you want to call it, little studio.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember before I moved in, he was like, I think there might be a bee problem. And I said, okay, no worries. Like, are they inside or are they outside? And he goes, they're outside, but sometimes like you'll have the occasional bee that comes inside the studio. Yeah, no worries, whatever. So then one night I'm sleeping and you could hear the buzzing. Yeah, you could hear the, and I was like, okay, maybe, like maybe they're inside. You know, sure. I put my ear to the wall and they're like really fucking loud.
Yeah, and they get hot too. Like they
like all the vibration gets like all that heat, right? So I was like, I think we should get them out, and I don't want to just, you know, like spray gasoline or whatever. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way to, you know, relocate them.
Yeah.
So Jason was like, let me call up a friend. She's a beekeeper. I don't remember her name. You might know her.
She might be my mom, because we
really
we're part of that business.
Maybe, yeah. I still have pictures. So, and the bees had their hive. So it's the wall of the outside, and then it's like the roof that drapes out, and they were like on the inside of.
You know, I think we might have met a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I remember this house.
Yeah, it was on what is it, Fenwick?
I think so.
Yeah, it was like in the back. Like it was a big house in the front, and then it was a little tiny house in the back.
Yeah, and even like out front. I remember. I do remember this.
That was you?
Met? Yeah.
Damn, dude.
I had longer hair and a bee suit on, so you probably don't
I think, me. Yeah, like I said, I have the pictures there. You might be in the picture now that I think about it. But yeah, dude, Jason called you guys up and he was like, hey, let's get these bees out. And you guys got them out. And it was so crazy to see how the bees made their home in that little area. And I don't know, man. Like it was crazy. And then you guys got them out, and then that was it. Like,
yeah. And sometimes,
do you remember where like are they like, I don't know if the question is the right question. Not that they're still alive, but like where did you relocate them? Like,
so we have a understanding and a deal with Bobby Quintanilla of Capataz and Tabernia, and he lets us house our bees and hives at his ranch in exchange for so much honey per year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is really cool.
So they're all out there.
So would you say that those same bees are still out there, or their life cycle's already?
That hive is still there. Like their life cycle is relatively short. Like they're born, and as they get older, they acquire different kind of jobs throughout the hive. Yeah. So like the hive is still there. Maybe the queen has been replaced like 1 or 2 times. Yeah. But there's new generations that have definitely come through and perished and grown since then.
Dude, that I swear to you, that was some of the best honey that I've ever had.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like our ecosystem, our mesquite produces one of the highest quality of honey like you can find, because the glucose content is so high that I think you've maybe heard me talk about it, that it causes the honey to crystallize. Yeah. And the crystallization is an indicator of its quality. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I wish I still had some of the honey, and I explained to you what happened to that honey, but it was some of the best honey because it was very fruity in a way. It was very citrusy, and it was like a vibrant honey, you know?
So honey that's acquired within like residential neighborhoods tend to be a little bit different, because bees do pollinate over a 10-mile radius. So like when you have like a residential area, you do have citrus trees. Yeah. You do have like stuff that isn't necessarily native, but you might have jasmine and stuff like that kind of contributes to the overall flavor profile.
That's crazy. Yeah. And I didn't know much about bees until, and I would say that I still don't, but our typical instinct is to, kill the bee or whatever. And then, one day, I don't remember who I heard it from, but they're like, don't kill that bee because then more bees are gonna come. Like they let out like a scent, and then it attracts more bees or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not.
So I don't think killing a bee will attract more, but in my experience, they do communicate in one of two ways, and that's through vibrations and scent. So like I've been in situations where like banana smells very much like the attack pheromone.
Really?
So, like don't eat bananas near bees because it smells like the attack pheromone. Like they'll attack you.
Oh wow.
Like there was this one time where I was just kind of like walking around campus and I had bananas in my backpack and I forgot I had bananas in my backpack, but bees were just kind of like bumping into my head and they're like kind of being jerks. I'm like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And sure enough, I look into my bag and whew, the smell of bananas
Wow.
just kind of like came out. I was like, oh,
That's why. That's crazy.
People use lemongrass to attract swarms because it smells like a homing pheromone.
Really?
And I found that when we do removals, like almond extract or almond oil, that scent kind of pushes them out of area. They hate it. Like they won't make them angry, but they're like, oh, that smells disgusting, and they'll just like evacuate an area.
Oh wow.
So a lot of the time we'll use like a certain type of spray that smells exactly like almonds, and they just leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's not the same scent that you use for like the smoke or.
So the smoke is kind of like so they communicate through scent, and that smoke basically blinds them because the pheromones get lost in that scent. And so
what is the smoke made out of, or like what are you smoldering?
You can burn anything really.
Oh really?
Yeah. I use hay, cardboard.
Oh wow.
Sometimes I even throw a little bit of the beeswax in there.
Oh nice.
And but it's not really
like a specific thing.
It's not a specific thing.
Yeah.
But the purpose is to kind of like blind them, to distract them.
Oh.
To kind of like make you invisible, so to speak. And sometimes the smoke doesn't even work, depending on the ferocity of the hive.
Yeah.
Like they'll still get you.
Have you had like a really I wouldn't say ferocious, but like a really angry swarm? Because there's more angrier swarms than others, right?
Absolutely.
Some are more calm than others.
So right around the border, we do have bees that are hybridized with the African genetics. And so the story is like right around the 70s or the 80s, we're trying to create a bee that could basically withstand disease and parasites. And so they ended up breeding the European honeybee with the African honeybee. So not only did you get like a very productive bee, but you got a hyper aggressive one. And I think somehow the bee got released and it killed off the native populations, and it just propagated. And so we very much, like all feral bees are going to have that genetic. Like it's been long enough to kind of just accept that.
Be in there.
It's going to
be in there.
And so far it's in the hotter border regions that you'll find them. As you go north, you'll find like these really docile bees that aren't going to like, excuse my language, but fuck you up.
Yeah.
But I have encountered my fair share of African beehives. And although they are aggressive, I will say that they are the apex. They are immune to disease. They're immune to parasites. And there's certain methods you can use to kind of like dictate like that's an African hive.
Yeah.
So like when I was doing this frequently, I had two methods to kind of check if they're Africanized. It's like a feral beehive, you'll go and like breathe on them, you'll just go like, and that little bit of carbon monoxide, I think is what we exhale, will set them off because they have a hypersensitivity to it.
Really?
So like a feral beehive will just kind of be like they'll get agitated.
Yeah.
But if you were to breathe on an African beehive, it's an instantaneous reaction of violence. They'll swarm your face, they'll coat you, they'll all come out.
Really?
And they're also slightly smaller.
So the African bees are slightly smaller.
Slightly smaller.
Wow.
And so like the untrained eye, it's just like a regular bee. But like when you put the two and two together, it's like night and day.
Yeah.
And people think like, oh, they're African. They've got to be like a different color. They got to,
Yeah.
But it's not the case at all. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
But it's those two small indicators that kind of tell me whether or not we're gonna have a bad day or not.
And are they violent just to be violent,
it's in their blood and it's in their genes.
And they'll sting you or they'll attack you?
They will sting you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And like with feral beehives, like there is a point in time where like you're gonna get stung, you're gonna get attacked.
Yeah.
Regardless. Sometimes you get hives that are just like really docile and you can just get the job done.
Like what's their main trigger? Like because I've been around bees before, and like I usually like I tell Amanda like just don't bother it. It's not gonna bother you, you know. But like, what are the main?
Their main triggers are like obviously like someone disturbing their home.
Yeah, like, you know.
Like they say, don't wear dark colors when you
Really?
enter the beehive, because they've evolved from like large animals
Mhm.
that are dark, like such as bears, hypothetically,
Yeah.
that attack them and raid their hives. So they're like
Oh.
adapted to recognize that,
Oh.
which is why the bee suits are white.
Yeah.
But like, you know, agitating the hive, like poking around it, like ripping it apart. Sometimes they fuse two of the frames together, and that's called burr comb. You got to separate that burr comb. That's going to piss them off. You're going to get honey everywhere.
Really?
It's just the basic. And you know, there's been studies that say like bees of all the animals in the world like share some sort of like cohesive thing with humans, because like we put out certain types of scents and pheromones when we're experiencing a type of emotion, like
Right.
adrenaline, like we're going to get kind of stinky, you know?
Yeah.
And that will set them off.
Really?
You know,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so like bees not only like recognize human faces, but like the way we have bad days, they're going to have bad days.
Yeah.
And it's our chemistry and our biology that, you know, they can pick up on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's by accident, but it's definitely by design, where, you know, an animal that obviously communicates through scent is going to pick up the scent of the human and it's going to react to it.
Yeah. That is pretty crazy, man. Like bees are way more complex than like I ever thought.
Yeah.
You know, and I think than anybody else ever thinks. And for somebody to just say spray gasoline on them and just light them on fire, that is crazy, man. Yeah. That's oh man, that kind of makes me angry, man. Like, cause I think they're just as complex as us.
Yeah,
like,
no,
you know.
definitely. Well, they're a society.
Yeah.
You know, it's the single most successful matriarchy on the planet,
That's crazy, man.
amongst other types of hive minds.
Yeah.
And that's like another thing. Like once you kind of get past the idea that you're working with like 1,000 bugs at once.
Yeah.
But when you kind of accept like, oh, it's like a one cohesive organism working together.
Yeah.
It kind of puts into perspective. It kind of definitely alters the way you interact with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Is there anything that you want to add or that you want to say to the audience before we kind of finish this podcast?
I just want to say first and foremost, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
And
Thanks for coming on the show.
I would like to say that I think we live in we're very lucky to call Laredo our home. Not only in terms of the communities that we form amongst each other, but I just want to bring awareness to the Renaissance that's happening.
Yeah.
And on another note, our home that is the Tamaulipan is very different, and it's precious, and it's a very rare thing to live in it.
Yeah.
And there's things that inhabit it that don't occur anywhere else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say like we should respect it, and we should love it for what it is, and we should do what we can to conserve it in any shape or form that may take, whether it means voting for people in council that can appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
To help conserve the land that we live on. You know, we can develop as a people and as a city, but we can also develop alongside nature rather than against it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's it.
That's cool, man. You know, again, thanks for coming on the show. I enjoy talking to you every time, man. It's always fun and exciting to hear what you got going on in your life, and the experiences that you come up with. And
Ditto, brother.
yeah, man. And also a little side note, this is just for funsies, but Chris is a big Halo fanatic. I mean, you're a big Halo fanatic, right?
Halo.
I am in love, and I don't know if you saw my figures up there or not, but I have Halo action figures up there. But yeah, Chris is a big Halo fanatic. So when he told me about that, or you know, I posted something on my story, and he's like, "Halo?" I was like, "Halo?"
Yeah, the memes are real.
Yeah, dude, they're on point, man. So, yeah, guys, thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Please check him out. What are your socials?
I have Peyodal, which is my personal account, which is PEY0TL_. And there's El Venado Azul, and then my pottery, my ceramics page is the Pyrotoad.
Pyrotoad Ceramics.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's such a fun. That's such a cool name, and even the logo. I don't know if you made it or not, but it's such a cool logo.
My friend, who's a tattoo artist here in town, he goes, I believe, his name's Andy. He works at the Iron Horse.
Oh, nice. Shout out to Iron Horse.
Sorry,
that's where
Andy.
I got this tattoo.
But yeah, he did that for me.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, check out Chris on his Instagram. Really cool, fun, exciting guy. And just overall fun person to be around. And you can also check him out at Dosis Café Radical. That's usually where you'll find him most of the times. So yeah, so that, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Jeffrey Ramos, and we'll see you on the next one. Laters.